there, my name is Marley and welcome to my booktube channel. Today I'm going to be wrapping up my August reads. Before we get into it, if you are not already subscribed, please hit the button down below and also follow me on Goodreads and Instagram to keep up with me in between videos. Sorry, the framing for this is a little weird. I wanted to sit. It kind of looks better with the shelves when I'm standing, but we gotta sit down for this. As always, let's go through my stats really quickly first. So in the month of August, I read 9 books, which is pretty good for me. However, 2 of them, as you'll see, were manga. So technically I read less than normal with only 2,958 pages, and my average rating was 3.6. So honestly not ideal. And I acquired 4 books this month, which I have a haul coming up soon. I think it's gonna be my next book. Sneak peek. Okay, as for genres this month, interesting breakdown, mostly thrillers with over 50% were thrillers. Then we had 33% fantasy and then 11% sci-fi. I feel like it looked a little different than my normal breakdowns do. For format, still doing good with mostly physical, 6 physical books and then 3 ebooks, no audiobooks as always. For audience, pretty typical for me, split between adult and YA. For author gender, I read from 6 female authors and 3 males. Author status, I read from 8 repeat authors and only 1 new to me author. That's a stat I'm really noticing. I'm mostly reading repeat authors for sure. And then for years published, kind of random, but we had 4 published in 2023 this year. 1 from 2021, 1 from 2013. Sorry, the camera's shaking. My cat is jumping on the table. And then 2 from 2012. Okay, let's talk about the books now in the order of my least favorite to my favorite. So kind of shockingly, we are starting out with A Stranger in the House by Shari Lapena. This is a thriller book. Now I have officially read all of Shari Lapena's backlist and I only have her newest release to get to. And I seem to have saved her worst book for last. This must have been one of her first books that she published because it was her worst book. I'm gonna say that with my full chest. Like, I gave it a 3-star, which is not the worst rating, but it was definitely her worst book. We are following this woman, and in the very first chapter, we see that she's running away from something. We don't know what, but she gets in her car and is just driving super recklessly that she gets in an accident. We go over to her husband's point of view, and we see that he gets home from work. His wife's not home, which is weird. She left the door unlocked. She left her purse and her phone there. Very weird. And then he gets a call that, you know, she's been in this accident, and it's the woman from the first chapter. She cannot remember what she was doing before the accident. She has this like short-term amnesia. She can't remember the evening leading up to her accident. So that's the mystery, is like, why was she running away? Who was she running away from? Why was she over in the bad side of town, which is where she was? And what led to this accident? And then we have the husband and her points of view. The husband's really wondering, like, do I really know my wife? Like, what is she hiding from me? We are also following a third point of view, which is their neighbor who lives across the street and seems to be involved somehow. She's very invested in their lives. She's best friends with this woman that had the accident. Kind of a straightforward plot in a way, similar to some of her other books that I've been reading recently, and the plot just did not give me anything interesting. I feel like nothing was super shocking. It was all pretty straightforward with stuff we've seen from her or stuff we've seen from other thrillers. So I did still read it in a day. That's why, you know, I can't say it's that bad because her writing is still always really engaging, I guess, and really quick to get through. But overall, this was definitely a disappointing read. So if you're gonna pick up Shari Lapena, which I do recommend that you do because I really like her other books, just don't bother with this one. And then we had another disappointing thriller read, unfortunately, and that was 0 Days by Ruth Ware. You can catch more of my full thoughts in my reading vlog from the month, where I read 3 new thrillers, as this did just come out recently. I also gave this one 3 stars, which I think is my lowest rating for Ruth Ware, or it's tied with The Lying Game. This one did have an interesting premise and first chapter where we're following this couple, and they have this cool job where they break into companies to test their security. Our main character, the woman named Jack, I think she goes by, so she breaks in physically to these offices to test their physical security. Her husband does the cybersecurity end and like hacks in, and then they let the company know like what they need to improve. So they do this one job, and then when Jack gets back, she finds that her husband has been brutally murdered. Due to some different things, she ends up becoming the lead suspect. And so she decides to go on the run instead of being arrested for a crime she didn't commit because she loved her husband. They were actually very cute. I like their relationship. She goes on the run to try and figure out who really did kill her husband and also to like, you know, not go to jail herself. Unfortunately, I feel like most of this book was just focused on Jack running from the police, trying to deal with this injury that she gets along the way, rather than actually trying to uncover the mystery. And that just wasn't what I wanted. I just don't think that's the interesting part of this. I think in mysteries, obviously you want to focus on the unraveling of the mystery, not just our main character like stitching up her injury a million times when it comes loose, her dressing comes loose and stuff like that. So not the best, and I guessed, you know, the guilty party pretty early on as well. So sorry, but this one was not great. Not great. Next up, we have The Whispers by Ashley Audrain. I also read that in that same thriller reading blog. Plain and simple, like, this book is about motherhood. We're following a few different mothers who live in the same neighborhood. They all live next to each other, and we're seeing their different experiences with motherhood, and for the most part, they're all pretty dark. The main plot, though, is the one mother whose son ends up in the hospital in a coma when he falls out of the window, and it seems like maybe his mother was involved. Like, did she push him out or something like that, because she was having a lot of issues with him and did show some like angry, violent tendencies. So it's surrounding this event. We're trying to figure out what really happened, and then it has a lot of like typical domestic issues, neighborhood drama, affairs, that kind of stuff. And as I said, really dives into motherhood and what that means for a lot of women. I gave it 3.5 stars because similar to, I guess, these other thrillers I read this month, I just feel like it didn't do anything that special. The twists weren't twisting. The plot wasn't plotting. Like, it was just like, okay, it's a basic book. So I don't know why I'm picking up so many of these recently. If it's something with my choice or if it's something with publishing recently that, I don't know, there's not enough time being put into these books, but definitely didn't enjoy this as much as The Push, which was her previous book that I really liked. It just didn't quite pack that punch that I think she wanted it to. All right, another book I rated 3.5 stars was In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. I've read a number of his books now, and normally I enjoy them. This one's a little bit of a middle of the road, probably, in terms of his books for me. It is a cool concept. It's kind of like a Pinocchio retelling, and it's a little bit of like a sci-fi because we're following this guy Victor, who is a human boy, but he was raised by a robot, Giovanni, I think his name is. So he was just raised in the woods, and then there's these other little robots that are like his friends, and they just had this nice little life there together, but he's always wondered like what else was out there, right? And he's always been so different from his friends and family because he's human and they're all like robots. Then one day they find this new robot that's like almost died, and they like bring him back to life, rebuild him, whatever. That's sort of like the catalyst to the rest of the story because of like the past that this new robot has. And then like Giovanni ends up getting like kidnapped by this like evil force. I won't get into it, but basically we have our main characters have to go on this journey or this quest to try and save Giovanni, Victor's father. And the first part of the book I really did enjoy. I liked that setup, and I really liked our main crew. Victor is kind of a typical main character, but then his two friends, Nurse Ratched and Rambo, the robots, are very funny. They have a lot of personality. If you've read from TJ Klune before, you know he can be really funny, or at least his humor matches with me. So there was some really hilarious stuff in this book. The second half of the book didn't quite deliver as much for me. I was a little more bored as we found out more about this world and got some different characters that entered in that I didn't really care about as much. So then I was kind of like, okay, let's just finish this up, to be honest. So yeah, 3.5, mostly good, but not a fave. Then I also read The Perfect Ruin as my book club book, which is by Shanora Williams. And I ended up giving this that same rating of a 3.5 star. I keep giving a lot of books that rating recently. I don't know why. So this is a thriller book. We're following our main character, Ivy, and she has had a tough life. We know her parents are gone. We know she's in therapy. She's been diagnosed with a lot of different disorders and things. We know she has some trauma with an ex-boyfriend. stuff like that. And the person who is behind her parents being killed, she has never known who it was. For some reason, they kept that a secret from her. Police and everything kept it a secret, but she finally finds out the name of the person who killed her parents. And so it's a revenge story. Like, it's her taking upon herself to try and ruin this person's life and basically steal their life because they're a very rich, successful person, and she herself obviously has had a very disadvantaged life. So it's this revenge plan. We're following a character who is unhinged, if you like that. I haven't read too many books like that with like an unhinged main character. I could see the trope getting a little bit old, but for now, like, for the most part, I did enjoy it, and I do think this book was really entertaining. I'm really glad I read it. Unfortunately, there were certain times in it I felt like it was dragging out a little bit, and I was like, okay, like, let's get to the action and like the twists. The reveals were not really coming, or they weren't really hard hitting until the end. And then there were some twists at the end that were good, but then it was kind of like, it was just going back and forth between, is this happening or is this? But it wasn't really adding anything new. The twist was just kind of going back and forth in a very vague way. So I couldn't quite give it a 4, but I did think it was very entertaining, and I probably would overall recommend it. Next up, I don't really want to talk about this too much because I'm kind of getting tired of talking about it, but I read 2 more volumes in the Deathnote series. I've been making my way through this for a couple of years now. I read volume 10 and 11, so that means I only have 2 left. So I'm very excited about that. But I just gave both the volumes 4 stars. I still struggle with how to rate manga because they're always like short and like, I don't know, the volumes all kind of mixed together for me. So I don't really have that many opinions on this. I am interested in just reading the next 2 and seeing what happens. So recommend this manga, recommend this anime. And I did not have any 5 stars this month, but now let's talk about my 2 4-star reads. So we have One of Us is Back by Karen M. Mcmanus. This is the 3rd book I read in that reading blog I referenced before. This is the 3rd book in the One of Us is Lying trilogy, which I'm sure you have heard about. It is a YA thriller, and in the first book, we're following a group of teens who are all in detention together, and then one of them ends up dead, so then the other teens become the suspects, obviously, because they were with him when he died. He also had secrets and like was blackmailing them, so that was like more motive. Anyways, the second book, we follow like a copycat blackmailer situation going on. A lot of stuff happens, a lot of drama, a lot of crime. In this one, we now have a huge cast of characters from the first 2 books, which we're following. We only get points of view from 3 of them though. And it seems like there's another new potential, copycat entering the ring who's trying to play a game with this town or terrorize the town. It starts with, some mysterious signage around the town, and then one of our main characters ends up getting kidnapped one night, and a mysterious message is written on her, and it kind of escalates from there, and our main Bayview crew is trying to figure it out. I gave this a 4 because it's just a fun time, and I didn't necessarily have super high expectations from it. I think it was a pretty good wrap up to the series. Was it super needed? No. Did it wrap up some things nicely? Yeah. I liked that it had some callbacks and connections to the first book. So I was happy with it. I mean, as you can see, I had a lot of disappointing reads this month now that I'm reflecting back. So it was nice to just kind of have a book that gave me what I wanted. It didn't blow me away either, but it was still fun to read. I guess my favorite book of the month would have to be The Dream Thieves by Maggie Stiefvater. So this is the 2nd book in the Raven Cycle series. The Raven Boys, the first book, I gave 5 stars. I really loved it, and it's probably a favorite book of the year for me. This 2nd book was a little bit of a letdown, but I still really enjoyed it. So if you don't know, we're following our main character, Blue, in the first book, and she is basically the only non-psychic in this family of psychics, but she does have the power to amplify other people's powers. And then she ends up teaming up with this group of boys who go to this private school. I think the mascot is Raven, so that's why they're kind of known as like the Raven Boys. Some other Raven references are like throughout the book. But anyway, the leader of their crew is named Gansey, and he has this quest that he's on to find this long lost missing Welsh king who is known to be like hidden somewhere in the town that they live in. If you find him, you apparently get a wish. So anyways, she teams up with them. There's a lot of like kind of weird paranormal stuff going on. In the second book, we're just kind of continuing on with that story. They're still on their little mission. But the reason this one was a little more disappointing for me is because we're focused on two characters that aren't necessarily the ones I wanted to focus on. So Blue and Gansey, like I mentioned, I really love their characters and they have a romance as well. This one focused more on Ronan, who's displayed here, and he has a certain power, and we really delve into his character in this book. And I like his character, don't get me wrong, but just wasn't, I guess, as compelling for me as the previous book was. And then also Adam, who's another one of the boys, was a big focus, and I can honestly say I don't really like Adam. So hoping the third and fourth book go back to focusing more on Blue and Gansey because they're the characters I connect more with. But this book still did go interesting places. We're building up this world. We found out some new different powers that people have, and I still just enjoy Maggie Stiefvater's writing. I still think this is a really funny series. There's a lot of good humor in it and some scary stuff as well, some kind of monster stuff. This is a weird series. Like, there's a lot of weird stuff going on, but I would overall recommend this series. I know it's like 10 years old. I'm late to the party. Hopefully I will finish the series soon because I'm really enjoying it. All right, so that's the 9 books I read this month. Definitely let me know if you have thoughts on any of these books, and thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, great rest of the summer, and I'll catch you in my next video. Bye.